back to the Pop Culture Corner, everybody. My name's Ty. I'm the host of the show. And today we have a fun guest, a cosplayer, Regal Rein Cosplay, who we were going to have on the convention, but oh my God, almost lost the microphone there. She was going to join at the convention, but she got a little busy with judging the contests and all that stuff. So today she's going to be here. It's going to be a lot of fun. Before we get into that, make sure to like, share, subscribe, and if you can, become a member, help support the show, send a super chat. All of it goes back into the production and back into making the show as good as it can be for you. A little bit later, I do want to address a few things, not with Regal, but with you guys as my audience. Ryan Kinnell made some very, very, very outlandish statements. So I want to do a separate show a little bit later about that, the racism, the bigotry, because it can't be accepted. And if we continue to allow those kind of actions to be, utilized by geeks and gamers, then we're part of the problem. If we don't stand up against the problem, then we're part of it. So I don't want to be that person, but, I got to be. So with that being said, welcome. You look very, very nice today.
Thank you.
I think that's part of the job, right?
Yeah, kind of.
So tell me a little bit about who you are, how you got started, all that good stuff. Let the audience know, why you're here.
Absolutely. So I am Regal Rein Cosplay. I usually go by Allie as well. So I am an actor. That's how I kind of got my love of performing, being in character, and all of that. Really, cosplay for me started with Renaissance fairs. I love period dramas. That's my favorite type of play, my favorite type of TV show. So I loved those costumes and the beautiful gowns and all of that.
Oh God, yeah.
And then I found out Renaissance fairs were a thing. And I was like, oh my God, I can dress up like these characters that I love so much. And it spiraled from there. I bought my first kind of gown off eBay and went to my first fair, and then it started spiraling because
Right. You
I
get
found out
hooked.
that, yeah. And I found out that like conventions were a thing and that you can dress up from like other mediums like comics and video games. And there are other people who do this. And I was like, all right, here we go. And I got launched into that. The first like true cosplay I owned that was like based on a character was Marjorie from Game of Thrones. So it was kind of
Oh, she
it was,
was my favorite. She was amazing.
I love Natalie Dormer.
Yeah.
She's one of my favorite actresses in general. And that leads back to all the period dramas and all of that. And
So how excited are you for the prequel, like the Targaryen prequel? Because
I
there's
am
some
excited.
cosplay there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the hard thing. I was so disappointed with the last season.
Oh,
So like I really
sorry.
want to be excited,
You're one of
but at
those,
the
I
same,
see.
yeah, I will say I loved elements of the last season, and I want to watch House of the Dragon, and I am crossing my fingers that it's gonna be like what that first half of Game of Thrones was. And so I do really want to watch it, and I'm looking forward to it. It's one of those like I don't want to get burned again kind of. That was also a very bad pun. And it was one of those things like they had elements of the last season that I liked and also some that I
Yeah,
didn't.
no, I
Yeah.
understand. I was just joking.
Oh no, it's okay. I
There,
totally get it.
the writers definitely phoned it in on season 8, and I
Yeah.
understand that the show didn't really go where people wanted it to go. That's where
Mhm.
I think the problem lies, though. Just because it didn't end the way maybe you wanted it to. I'm not talking about you, Allie.
Oh no, I get it. Yeah.
If a show doesn't necessarily end on the note that you wanted, you can't fault that show. I think the show did
Exactly.
a job of trying. I mean, imagine the task that they had in front of them, wrapping
Mhm.
up the biggest show of all time. There's no way you can please everybody.
Exactly.
But they definitely phoned it in a little bit. Now they're talking about a Jon Snow sequel series.
Mhm.
But Kit Harington had a lot of depression after Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of wondering why he wants to jump back into it on like a solo aspect, because if he couldn't handle the ensemble Game of Thrones without getting
Yeah.
depressed, a solo show's a lot of work. So there's a lot of Game of Thrones stuff that I think, for you, for a cosplayer, for fans. I mean, even at the
Yeah.
convention that we were just at, you see these people, kids dressed up as these characters, and it's just such a fun environment. And I got hooked. That was my first time I did a convention. That was the most fun I've ever had in my life. Like doing the show.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've talked to, A-list actors, B, C-list actors. I've done a lot of cool stuff, done shows inside movie theaters, from the lobby of a movie theater. I've done all these things, but the convention was by far my favorite thing to do, just because of the atmosphere.
Absolutely. And that was my first con back since 2020.
Right.
The last con I went to before that was KatsuCon in the February of 2020, just a few weeks before everything just went kaput. And it was so fun to be back and to have that energy and see different cosplayers. And one of my favorite things about that con was, so as we were saying earlier, Black Widow is like my specialty. She's so special to me and all of that. I love doing that cosplay. There was somebody who was there as a Taskmaster. And
I have a bunch of pictures.
Excited.
I have a bunch of pictures of him.
Yep. I was so excited to see that. And it was so funny because he was coming down the line of all of the cosplay tables, and we both kind of looked at each other. We're like, yes, come here. Like, we got to take a picture together. And I missed that. I missed having people like know your fandoms and be excited.
Who won that, by the way? Who did you guys choose to be the winner of that event? I didn't actually catch
Taskmaster.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, he won.
Yes! I'm trying to find his picture right now.
Absolutely. It was an entire foam build. And he was showing us all the pieces that like could be taken off of it. Like the visor could be taken off so he could actually like talk to people and all of that. And it was all handmade, hand painted. And we're like, yep, this guy.
So talk to me about creating cosplay, right? So this was that Taskmaster.
Yeah.
I have some body shots of him too. But this is, I mean, the kid was super nice. He was super into it, right? When I took the camera out and I was like, listen, I want you to do this, this, and this, I'm putting a show together for whatever. And when he put the costume together on himself, he changed from this person to the next to Taskmaster, and it was just so cool to watch. He was so talented, so talented. So talk to me about the creativity of making costumes and what it entails, because a lot of people don't know that. I mean, you guys don't just order them on what is that website? Wix.com or whatever it's called.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wish.com.
Yes. There are some, and I will say there are some that I will fully admit to ordering, like my Black Widow suits. I was joking. I was like, Marvel suits are hard to build. And so some of those I do buy, and I am totally okay with that. But I do love the element of building. Now, I am not a sewer. I can hand stitch, but I cannot run a sewing machine. I will fully admit that. But one of my favorite things is going to a thrift store, finding pieces that I need and modifying. So I also do Rey from Star Wars. And that particular one, I found like a tan shirt. It was long sleeve, so I cut it into her tank top. It was also a little big, so I was able to alter it to fit. And then like the pants I found, I made like drawstring bottoms on them to match and make it more screen accurate. So that was super, super cool to be able to make that myself. And then you even get into like prop making. Prop making is a whole nother ball game. I've done a few myself, but I applaud anybody who like 3D print stuff or anything like that, because it is a beast, and that is it was so fun. Like for Ray in particular, she of course has her like battle staff.
Right.
Um, I my stepdad and I made that out of PVC piping and foam, and I found a belt at the thrift store once again, and that was the like the strap to have it over her shoulder. And I found like fabric pieces to like wrap around. So it was just finding all the little elements that was so fun in it.
Right. And your Instagram, I mean, I went through the whole thing and
Yeah.
looked at all the stuff that you've done. And I mean, so you you told me backstage, but you have a certain cosplay that I mean, I noticed that when I talk to cosplayers like Liz Wonder, even the girl that I just had on at the convention, who
Yeah.
started with body makeup and then, kind of went into cosplay from it. But you guys all have like one cosplay that means the most to you or connects with you the most. So, which one is that for you?
For me, it would definitely be Black Widow. I have never felt more powerful in my life than I have when being in those suits.
Right.
And I love the camaraderie of that community. I'm just gonna shout out the Black Widow cosplay community in general, because in that community, we love meeting up with each other. There's a wonderful group on Facebook that everybody can post and say like, hey, where did you find this? What is the best option like to get this
Oh, it's so good.
costume or wig or anything like that? And it's always been so special to me because that cosplay has gotten me a lot of opportunities as well. I was able to walk the Black Widow red carpet at the New York premiere for the movie, and I don't think I've ever smiled so much in my life than I did that day. It was so special.
I saw
And
that.
yeah, it was
Amazing.
absolutely incredible. And it was something I never thought I'd get to do because
Already.
it's mostly, yep. And that's my friend who was Yelena that day. And
That's so cool.
yeah,
I
and
mean, I've been to premieres and stuff like that. Never got to walk the red carpet like that, but I mean, that must have been a moment that just. I mean, I did Black Widow. I did the premiere at Showcase, like I did the show at the theater, and
yeah.
I mean, there are people cosplaying at the theater, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
Black Widow is just one of those characters that people love, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what do you in the MCU though, like actual, right? We'll switch to like
Yeah.
the actual storyline. Are you sad that she's gone?
I'm very sad.
I
And
figured.
it's it's funny because so going back to Endgame even, I had loved her before Endgame. I loved her story and all of that, but and I still wasn't super cosplaying like Marvel characters yet. I was still kind of figuring out who I wanted to do and all of that. And I was going to do Wanda as my first one for a while, but then in Endgame, when she sacrificed herself and did that, I remember sitting in the theater and I was like, "Yup,
Yeah, that
that's
would be
who I'm
her.
doing." It
That
was I had so much respect for her and for that decision, and even though it was so hard to see her go, I was like, "Yup,
she
this is it."
she had to fight to sacrifice herself. Not
Yeah.
not many people have to do that.
She really did.
She literally had to fight
And
her best friend to kill herself and
yeah.
save the world. But I've always thought that they didn't utilize that character, Natasha, to the best of their
Mhm.
ability. I thought that Black Widow, the movie, should have came out maybe phase
Yeah.
two, um,
Mhm.
but that's not what happened.
Yeah.
And it is what it is. But going forward, I think Yelena is going to step up, and
Absolutely.
yeah, and I can't wait for that. So, would you see yourself doing a Yelena?
Maybe. I love Florence Pugh in that character. I think she's absolutely hilarious. And I will say that was one of the hardest parts of the Black Widow movie was at the very end knowing that they most likely never saw each other again.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
remember driving in the car on the way home with all of my friends from the premiere, and I was like, guys, I think Yelena got blipped. And all
Yeah.
of us just were very, very quiet for a second, and we're like, no, nope, we're not talking about that. We're not doing that. And then lo and behold, come Hawkeye, we find out that that's true. And
Right.
that I
The
will
only
say that series broke my heart in so many ways for
Yeah,
Black Widow. So
because when she comes back, she's no
she's
longer
already
because
gone.
she's no longer gone, but she's the reason you're back. So it's like
Yeah.
you hate her for leaving you, but you love her for saving you, and it's like a really weird.
Exactly.
It's a really weird medium to be in. Because
Mhm.
and I actually like this question. Because they
Yeah.
did never finish this arc. I think this could have
Yeah.
been a really cool thing though. Because Black Widow and Bruce had this really cool connection in Age of
Yeah.
Ultron. And I really wish that they fleshed that out a little bit more, but I think the Russo brothers just had too much on their plate and couldn't.
Mhm.
And they know that they didn't utilize Hulk very well. They know
Yeah,
that. Um,
they do.
if you had to pick like a character from the MCU now that you know you would cosplay, like say there's what's the next one that you want to do, and maybe something that really connected with you or
Mhm.
means something to you.
I would. Oh, geez, I'm still really wanting to do a Scarlet Witch. That
That's
is
who
one.
I keep forgetting her name.
Oh,
God.
Mandy. Yeah.
Mandy, yeah. That's who I love that she included because
Mhm.
she wasn't Wanda from the
It was the
MCU
what if
proper. It
zombie
was the
Wanda.
what if one. So I was like, yo, that's so dope. Because she had
Yeah.
so it was a different take, but I mean
Exactly.
you could use some inspiration from her.
Yeah.
With her
I
costume.
think.
It was really well done.
Yeah. I think if I were to do one, I've been going back and forth about either doing like the Civil War look or doing like her WandaVision like final form. I think those costumes were really great and I loved how they looked and I feel like they would be super comfortable to wear because that's a big thing for me too is like when you're out on the con floor is making sure you feel comfortable and you're not going to overheat and
Right.
all of that. So I'm I feel like that would fit into those categories of like they would work.
How did you do this?
I personally did not. A friend of mine did that for me. So that is a photo of me out in the Tower of London when I studied abroad. And I'm a big history nerd. And so that was the spot
Hi.
where, yeah. So that was the spot where Anne Boleyn had been executed. So I had a friend take a picture of me, like looking out there. I don't know why I did that, but the other photo is one in that original ball gown that I got for Renaissance fairs as like my take on Anne Boleyn, and a friend of mine photoshopped them together for the death anniversary.
Wait, is
So,
this one?
mhm,
Oh, this is a beautiful. Like
mhm.
the costume is so elegant.
I know it's one of my favorite ones. It's always super super special, and it's one that I'll never get rid of because I'm like even though I don't tend to
No.
wear it as much because at at fairs it gets so hot. And I have worn that at fairs and just like absolutely overheated.
Holy
And
shit.
yeah, so that
There's a
was at,
male in there.
we had some gender bent windows. It was super cool.
Hey, that's
And
so cool.
yeah, that was at KatsuCon. So that was when Black Widow was originally supposed to come out in 2020.
Mhm.
So at KatsuCon, they usually have a big Marvel shoot. And we did that particular year, they were showcasing all of the widows because the year before, they had done it for Captain Marvel.
Mhm.
So this year, they're like, all right, widows, everybody in.
Right.
And so that was like the big group shot of all the widows. Then they had us all like in the front row for the photos, like the big group ones. It was really fun. And it was right after Endgame as well. So all of us were talking about that and just having everybody there. And I'm pretty sure we had just about like everybody on the team there. So that was
Right.
really cool.
And that's one of the cool things about cosplay is the community that you build around you,
Mhm.
right? So that's what we do here, just in a different way. right?
Yeah.
You do your stuff in a different way. There's a lot of photography involved, and you
Oh
build
yeah.
your community that way. And then you meet other cosplayers, and of course, make friends, right? Because you all do the same
Yeah.
thing. Um,
Absolutely.
and has that been your experience, like with
Yeah.
the community?
Absolutely. I've loved being able to meet people who have similar fandoms, especially the ones that aren't as popular. Like one of my favorite cosplays to do is I do Bandit Snow White from Once Upon a Time. It was a show that had a really good run, but much like Game of Thrones in the way of the last season started to like tick, 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 tick. But it's so fun to meet people who also loved that show because I will say that is a big comfort show for me. I love going back and rewatching it.
I
And
That's me in Supernatural.
yes,
Yeah.
so that one's always super fun when somebody recognizes that cosplay and gets excited about it. That makes me excited. And going back to actually what we were saying about the props earlier, so I made like the big Once Upon a Time book. I made it out of like foam and plywood, or not plywood, but like little wooden boards, and painted it myself. And so everybody always gets super excited when they see the book. And that one, I will say that's probably one of the props I'm most proud of because I made it multifunctional. So when you open up the book, the foam is hollowed out. So I can put my phone and my
Ah,
wallet and like all of it in there so I can just carry it around and it works. And I love it.
see, that's the creativity. Right?
Mm-hmm.
People are so like genius when it comes to like ingenuity at like when you really need to get something done, right?
Mm-hmm.
um I hate to make this comparison, but like people in jail, right? How do they get all this stuff? Right? It's because they have nothing that's always on their mind, and they're always trying to figure out some way to do something, right? The same thing
Mm-hmm.
with someone who's dedicated to cosplaying, right? They're like,
Yeah.
how do I get away with this? Like, I need to incorporate my real life into it, but how do
Yeah.
I put on that show, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, do you have any other examples of like that kind of stuff? I love
I
hearing about that because
yeah.
how the how your guys, because you're talking about going to thrift stores and like you have to
Mm-hmm.
assemble these costumes. It doesn't maybe all it's not always like you said ordering it online.
Yeah. I guess it's just figuring out mostly like what can I make and what needs to be ordered or what can I modify.
Right.
Like one of my favorite cosplays that I've done. So I will fully admit, can't really hide it anymore because it's all over my Instagram. I was a Twilight girl growing up. That was my middle school years,
Woo!
and so yes,
Hey,
and so I
for
do Bella. What was
yeah,
that?
for anyone who shits on Twilight, by the way, you're kidding yourself. Because I enjoyed Twilight. My
Yes.
girlfriend at the time forced me into watching it. Whatever. And I was actually like I was really involved. I loved it. Like the whole the Voltaire. I it wasn't necessarily something that's memorable for me. Like I don't
Yeah.
remember all their names and whatever's, but
Yeah.
the story itself is very, very well done in the books, and then I guess suppose in the movies as well. But wow, did Twilight take over at that
It
time?
did. And that
Woo!
was the funniest thing about 2020 as well. Like we all joke on social media that there was like this big Twilight renaissance. Like Midnight Sun came out. Like everybody started watching the movies again in quarantine. There were so many cosplayers that happened. And
Yeah,
that was so much fun. But for that cosplay in particular, like I knew I wasn't going to get like screen accurate stuff because the movie is like super, super old and, or not super old, but like it came out a long time ago. So to get the same stuff that they would have used in that movie, it's going to cost me an arm and a leg.
literally.
So one of my favorite places to go to thrift, not necessarily is like a quote unquote like thrift store, but it's a Plato's Closet where people would bring in their clothes to be sold. And it's usually like high end brands at really cheap prices. And so she wears in the baseball scene, she wears like a green, like army jacket type thing with like a fuzzy hood. So I had some leftover like fluffy material that I sewed into the hood of a jacket I found. Yes, that one. The scarf came secondhand from the website Poshmark. I found one as close as I could get.
This is really good.
I know, right? Same with the gloves. Those came from Poshmark as well. And then the hat, I picked up just a plain white hat from a craft store and got blue puffy paint and just went to town.
It looks spot on though.
Yeah.
Not spot on, but you know what I mean? It looks very, very well done.
I'm very proud of that one.
Yeah. So the art of taking pictures as well, because obviously you see there's got to be some editing in these, right?
Yeah.
The things that weren't there when you took the picture that maybe ended up in the picture after. How do you use photography and editing to your, how do you add that in? Because it's something I've been noticing with cosplayers is, you can do a lot more with, Photoshop, and you don't necessarily have to buy everything. You can add some stuff into it, for the Instagrams and stuff like that.
Yeah. I will say I am by no means a Photoshop person. Like I can do like tiny little like pimple touch-ups, but I have amazing friends who are photographers. One of my really good friends, his handle on Instagram is Alex Takes Pictures Too, and he is absolutely wonderful when it comes to Photoshop and editing. And I remember when I did my first Ray shoot with him, he was taking like the first ever pictures of my Ray, and I had like the tiny little toy saber that I had bought, like just because it was like a long running like family joke, and I had it, and I was like, can we do anything with this? Like just like I'll hold it. And he was like, don't worry, I'll fix it. And I'm like, oh, okay, whatever. And he was the one who edited in like the blade, and it made it look so cool. Or even with so I do Carrie from Stephen King. I'm also like a bit like a horror nerd as well.
Buff, yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily like a buff, but like I love learning about it and all of that.
What do you mean learning about it though?
Like I love learning about like the behind the scenes, like how the practical effects work, so that helped me kind of with horror movies, because when I was younger, I could not watch them. They freaked me out, even though in my brain I was like, it's just a movie, it's not real, like it's okay. I still couldn't process it. It still would freak me out to no end. And so the way that I kind of made it through that was learning about the behind the scenes stuff, like how they made like this injury, how like the prosthetics worked, how they made this explosion or something like that. That for some reason, like flipped the switch in my brain so I could actually enjoy them. Yeah. I don't know why that worked, but it did. And so I love learning about the behind the scenes stuff of the movies and how they made certain things happen. That way, I guess it makes it a little more like, of course, it's still scary. Like there's still that atmosphere, but it's a little more bearable, I guess, to watch. Like I watched The Conjuring for the first time last Halloween just to kind of set the mood. And I was doing okay. But then, of course, I chose to watch it on like a really scary, like rainy day. And I kid you not.
In the Halloween time, it's raining.
I know.
It's creepy.
Literally, they did and the wind like whipped into my window and like banged. And I was like, I didn't need that. Like, why now?
Yeah.
So like, I will still definitely like get the heebie-jeebies like from a good scary movie, but it's still fun to learn about them too.
Yes, I am a 29-year-old male, and I still get freaked out walking around my own house. Right?
Yeah.
I've been sleeping on the couch in the next room over, right? Staying down here because I had, whatever. I had to do a show. So I'd be sleeping in the kind of the green room area. And like, I think stuff's behind me. Like, I still get a little freaked out every once in a while. It's okay. But
Oh
you're
yeah,
right.
absolutely. Like, does anybody like to have to go up the stairs from their basement when the lights
No,
are off? No,
not a single person
absolutely
that I've
not.
ever met enjoys that experience.
Yeah,
But
like
once you
you still
can,
run.
yes, once you can figure out, like, once you can talk yourself into, like, whatever it is, like, you're right. With scary movies or horror films, when I was younger, I very much was detached from them. Like, I didn't want to watch them. I was more, this stuff, right?
Mhm.
But the art of horror films
Yeah.
is so, the makeup, the body art, right? The costuming, the shots, the cinematography, how you can make someone feel like they are, like they've never felt before, fear that they've
Mhm.
never ever experienced. Because day to day, right? We don't typically get scared like for our life.
Yeah.
But when a movie, even a film that, maybe like a romance film that makes
Yeah.
you cry, or uh when you see all three Spider-Men on screen at once, you tear up and enjoy.
Yep.
When a film can speak to you, make you feel things, that's true art. And somewhere
Mhm.
along the line, we forgot about that, right?
Yeah.
Because film is art, right? It's
Mhm.
the director's vision, it's the actor's vision, it's the art of creating this show. And I think we're all a little bit too obsessed with, like, Rotten Tomatoes scores and
Yeah.
critics and all that. In the 80s, they didn't care what Joe Schmo from
No.
the Lowell Sun thought, right? They went and saw the movie and decided for themselves.
Mhm. And
That's
that's why I
wrong.
think one of my favorite directors right now is Mike Flanagan.
Oh,
He's done like Doctor Sleep. He's done The Haunting of Hill House, which is one of my favorite series.
so good.
Haunting of Bly Manor, and
The first one was
he,
better though. The
yes,
Haunting, yeah.
I will say Hill House has a special place in my heart. But I also did very much love Midnight Mass. That was so good, and I love how he can take a situation that is really, really like eerie and creepy and scary, but also make you feel so many emotions about it. Like Hill House is
Right.
in one of my opinions, like one of the most perfect depictions of like grieving and
Yeah.
grief in general in like television and film. And I absolutely love that show for that reason.
Yeah.
And I love that I could go from having an absolute jump scare, like the one I can think about the most is when Shirley and Theo are driving in the car and Nell just like jumps out of the back. Like that jump scare,
Oh my
like
god.
that, like I screamed. I was not ready for it, full on screamed. But to then have like Theo's big moment, like after they get out of the car and like all of that, and just have you feel all sorts of ways, like
That's
I
what it's supposed to
love
do.
they're able to do that.
Yeah, that's the exact emotion that I'm talking about. Is that
Mm-hmm.
when something can speak to you? And I don't know if you know this. Well, are you aware of the Snyder fandom, like the
A
DC?
little bit, yeah.
Okay, so I noticed that you don't do a lot of DC. I want to touch on
No,
that first.
yeah.
There's an untapped whole genre
I know.
there for you. Why
I
haven't you
really I
jumped in
really
yet?
want to do Wonder Woman. That is, she is really special to me in a lot of different ways. So I do really want to do that eventually, but that's one of those ones that I want to save up for like the good suit.
Right.
Like I want to be able to do it as well as I possibly can.
Have you ever talked to
And
Liz?
I have not actually. I've not had the pleasure to meet her yet. I
Maybe
like
I'll put
know
you guys
of
in
her and
touch.
I feel like we've been at the same conventions, but I've never actually gotten to like interact with her.
Yeah, maybe I could put you guys in touch because she could
Yeah,
probably give you some
absolutely.
tips. She's
Yeah.
amazing. She's an amazing person, right? Like
Mhm.
she my mother last year, right? So
Mhm.
my mother, well, 2024, 3, 2, 1 is when my mom passed away. I was,
Oh, I'm so
yeah,
sorry.
it's, I mean, thank you.
Mhm.
I was actually on a show that day when
Oh.
I got the call. I was talking to, like, you can go back and watch it. It's pretty rough, actually.
Oh.
I was talking to the top, or the chief film critic from Variety, Owen
Oh,
Gleiberman.
wow.
Yeah, so that was like a really big day for me. And
Yeah.
then I had to shut it down. But after that, she had messaged me because I put out this little GoFundMe for some of the funeral things, and she dropped like $500. I barely
That's
knew the person. I
wonderful.
barely knew her, and she dropped 500 into it. I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Yeah.
And like, I almost teared up to her, like that's what
Yeah.
these communities allow for, is that connection. And right, like we talk about the feelings that you get when you watch films, but also that feeling that you get when you talk to someone that gets you or understands.
Exactly.
Right. That's what I love about fandom. And there's this
Mhm.
big divide in the DC fandom, and
Mhm.
it's causing a lot of animosity from the studio towards the audience, right? Because of
Yeah.
the fans consider themselves the reason the Snyder Cut got made. They
Mhm.
now are demanding more, right? They think
Yeah.
that they think they have sway when they don't,
Yeah.
and it's
No,
causing
it's
a
all
lot of
studio.
exactly. It's causing a lot of divide, and I just look at the from the outside, and I'm like, you guys are doing this all wrong, right? Like you guys literally are not a fandom. You're attacking each other on a
Yeah.
consistent basis. That's not a fandom in my mind. A fandom is a group of
Yeah.
people that love the same thing, right? So
Absolutely. And I think one of the best examples of that, and I think about it all the time because it's one of my most special cosplay moments. The very first time I ever wore Black Widow was at Comic Con, New York Comic Con in 2019. And there was a Ladies of Marvel shoot later that day. And when I got there, there was, oh gosh, there was five of us. There was five Black Widows, and we were all in different suits, and we just kind of like clung to each other. We were like, "Oh my gosh, you all look amazing!" And basically, like it was
yeah,
full on like Spider-Man meme, like
yeah, yeah.
you,
You.
and it was so funny because afterwards, after like the shoot was done, we all stood there talking, and I kept looking at my watch because I was curious how long we'd actually been there. We stood there talking for another 40 minutes to an hour
Oh
of
no.
just, and that was just us talking. And I will say it ended up being that long because we would be mid conversation and somebody would come up and be like, "Can we take a picture of all the widows?" And we're like, "Okay, cool."
That's
Um,
that's
yeah.
one of the parts of like the convention going that actually drives me nuts.
Mhm.
Because we were I had well, it's only, I guess, from my perspective of that day,
Yeah.
right? Because I was trying to get things done in a timely manner. But
Uh-huh.
the guy I was with, who was helping me with the equipment, he kept getting pulled aside to do pictures. And I'm like,
Yeah.
no, we have a schedule. Like, we gotta go, we gotta go, we
Yep.
gotta go. And he was Master Roshi or something like that.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And people were upset. Like, I couldn't every single person that we walked by like looked or was like, hey, can I get a picture? And
Yeah.
I was on a tight schedule trying to get you, Mandy,
Mhm.
Keith
Absolutely.
Williams, and like it was driving me nuts. But that's but I guess, like, in turn, if I wasn't trying to get things done,
Yeah.
that's the really cool part of conventions. And um, do you
And
have
I
any?
will.
Do you have any
Oh,
that
sorry. Go
are you
ahead.
doing Fan Expo?
I am not, unfortunately.
Yeah, no one's doing that one.
I know it's mostly just because it's really far from me. So it would entail like a full on weekend, and
That's what I did
unfortunately,
for Springfield.
yeah.
Yeah,
I do. So I own my own business as well as cosplay and all of that. I do. Funny enough, I do character appearances and stuff. Um, but that I'm not able to take like a full weekend off for that, unfortunately. But it's definitely something on my list for next year. And going back to what you were saying, I completely agree. When it comes to being a cosplayer, you kind of have to figure out like, okay, if
you
I
can't
wear
even
this
eat.
certain costume, yeah, there there have been times. There have been times.
I
There
didn't
are.
get to eat that day. I was so
I did
pissed.
not. I did not
Yeah,
either.
I was
I had
so
snacks in
mad.
the car when I got
And
back.
did you? I mean, so no, I don't know if you guys. I mean, no one else knows, but so the comic. I mean, the Comic Con. Whoever put it on,
Mhm.
incredible conventions or whatever. Um, they didn't realize how many people were actually going to show up that day.
No, so from what
It
I
was crazy.
understand,
I have a video of a girl who passed out in the line.
oh my goodness. Yeah,
Yeah.
from what I understand, like from reading like statements and all of that, because I wasn't privy to a lot of that information myself, but when they first like, because a lot of tickets were on sale in 2020, when the con was originally supposed to be, and basically even when with those and with the rescheduled date, they had only received like hundreds of pre-purchases.
Right.
And then of course thousands ended up showing up.
It was
So
crazy.
there was no way they could even like prep for that, especially being a first year convention. Like
Yeah.
you expect under 1,000 people, and then like 2,000 show up and are waiting outside. Like
And it was hot.
it was
It was
very
hot.
hot. Yeah.
They were standing right in the sun, right on the
Yeah.
edge of the Mass Mutual Center,
Yep.
which is
And
like in this open
yeah.
field right in front of it. The sun's blaring on the cement.
Yeah.
Whew.
And I will say they did the right thing by working with the Mass Mutual Center to get those like cooling rooms so people could at least like, even if they couldn't go in the convention room yet, they still had a place out of the sun
Yeah.
to cool down and relax, which I think is really good on them, because there are some conventions that would have not even cared and just left everybody out there, either like in the hot or the cold. It has happened. It has definitely happened. And so I think they did good on doing with like working with what they could, which is
Yeah.
great.
No, I really did. I had a great time, and I I'll definitely keep doing the con, and I think, I mean, I the one thing that I did have an issue with is, so when I got there, they had, they knew that I was a podcast, right? Like that I was going to
Mm-hmm.
be doing a show. I needed a lot of electricity, right?
Yeah.
And they didn't tell me that I needed to buy the
Oh,
power.
geez.
Yeah, they didn't. I didn't know that was a separate charge, right? So they had these panels on the ground, and
Mm-hmm.
you had to get the Mass Mutual Center, team to
To
basically
turn
bring
it
out,
on.
yeah, to bring out this box that you could plug into it, and then you plug in a bunch of, it has a bunch of adapters and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
and that that charge was more expensive than the charge to get in, like to get the
Oh,
table.
God.
So they,
Yeah.
yeah. So they came up to, well, I walked up to them and I was like, hey, I need power. Like I can't find any ways to plug in power. And she she was like, okay, you have to give me like $100. And I was like, oh no. No
Yeah.
one told me about that. And we ended up working it out, and I didn't pay anything for it, but still the there was a little miscommunication in it. So next year I think the con's gonna be even better.
Oh,
I know
absolutely.
personally, I'm bringing Ray Porter and Mark Pellegrino. Ray
Cool.
Porter was Dark Side from Justice League, and Mark Pellegrino is obviously Supernatural's Lucifer. Jacob from Lost. He was in 13
Mm-hmm.
Reasons Why, and I got them in touch with the convention for next year. Well, because we were
Oh,
going
that's
to try to do it.
awesome.
Yeah, so next year I already know there will be two bigger names there, and that's gonna be really cool. And
Mm-hmm.
the convention will only get better as we go along.
Absolutely. And that's the thing with like a first year con. Like you don't know what you're going to expect, and that's totally okay. You got to go in knowing that and knowing that there will be improvements in the coming year. Nothing's going to be perfect on the first go round.
No, and I mean, what would you say for the future? What for the future? If conventions could improve on something, like all conventions, do you have an idea? What? God, I can't speak. What would your suggestion be?
I
I
guess,
I have mine.
yes. I will say like more safety measures in place for cosplayers. I luckily have not had to deal with this yet, but I do know of a lot of people who have, like people being creepy, people being weird, people who have like I know of people who have been full on groped in cosplay, and
That's
security has done nothing.
that's what I was gonna bring up. By the way,
Yeah.
this is why I bring this up. This is why I spun it this way, because
Mhm.
that's what I wanted to address. I
Yeah.
watched a girl who was, I talked to her previously. She came up to our table. She, talked about, how she wanted to podcast. She was 17. She was in a
Mhm.
sailor outfit. I have a picture
Oh,
of
I
you
think I
and
saw her.
her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a picture of you and her. You were judging her, and I took the
Oh,
picture.
yeah.
She had the sailor outfit on. She was 17 years old, and I saw a guy grab her ass. I was like,
Yeah.
what the fuck is going on? Like,
Yeah.
he took a
It,
picture with her and put his hand on her butt. And I was like, that.
and that's the thing. Like, if there could be anything, I would immediately say like more, not necessarily like security for cosplayers, but more that can be done. Like more that, like if somebody were to report something of that nature, there could be more steps taken with, instead of just like, oh, well, okay, we'll be on the lookout. Like that's it. Like, no, like this person is being a creep and it needs to be done. And that goes not just for males, but there are females who can be creepy to male cosplayers as well. And it goes both ways. Like,
It
if
definitely goes
you
both
got to
ways.
be safe, and this is said over and over online, and I feel like I need to say it again, cosplay is not consent. Just because they,
No. Yeah, it's not.
yeah. And especially like, as you said, you don't know if somebody's a minor. Like, that's just even worse.
She was
And so
17.
that's that's the big thing. Like, just don't be weird. Don't be
Yeah.
a creep. And if
Be
somebody doesn't feel
respectful of
comfortable,
other people. Yeah.
yeah. If you can, and that's the hard thing too. Like, there are some people in this world who can tell that they're making someone uncomfortable and don't change.
They
And
lean into it.
yeah, and that's what as I said, I've been lucky enough to not have to full on experience that. But the unfortunate thing is, I know I'm probably going to.
At
And
one point.
nobody
Yeah,
should,
that's
yeah, and nobody should have to feel like that. And I said it before and I'll say it again, cosplay is not consent. And I, there's a wonderful person I follow on TikTok who made this point. Just because something is like a yes today doesn't mean it'll be a yes tomorrow.
right.
So in the sense of like, oh yeah, like yes, you can give me a hug today. That's
Right.
okay. But then tomorrow, like you're in a different costume. Maybe you're in body paint.
Yeah.
And that same person comes up to you and immediately goes to give you a hug. Like, no, it's a different scenario. You don't want to be touched that day. You don't want anything to mess up. You don't want to ruin their costume. So that day in particular, it's gonna be a no. So, and
Um,
I think people
sorry.
do have a hard time with that. It's okay.
What the hell is on my back?
Zoom
Why is that
background.
there? Oh
There we
God.
go.
I was like, what is that? No, I completely agree. That's what I wanted to bring up is cosplayer safety, and safety of like table vendors, I guess is the word, right?
Mhm.
Vendors.
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
that's the part that I think could be improved at, not just Springfield. I don't think there was a problem there, but
No.
I've seen it at other conventions that I've been a con goer at, and
Yeah.
it can be really uncomfortable to watch. I can imagine experiencing it. I have a woman that I love, right? I have a sister. I have all these females in my life, and I've gone back and talked to them recently because
Mhm.
I was made aware that most women have experienced some sort of harassment, like
Mhm.
in the last week, right?
Yep.
You can ask 100 guys, when was the last time you felt threatened? Most of them will say never. You
Mhm.
say ask 100 women, they say this morning when they parked their car and some guy walked, was following them inside the building, right? So
Yep.
and I went back and talked to all the women in my life, and every single one of them has a story, and it's like we can't let that fly, right?
No.
But
And that's the big thing too. Like, and it's also, it's a two it's like a two-way street as well. Like, if somebody's feeling uncomfortable and they tell you that, you need to respect that and keep on keeping on. And as I said earlier, there are some who don't, and that is very unfortunate.
Yeah.
And something does have to change about that. And
Wh-
I do love the fact that I can't remember, I think it was like C2E2 or something out in Chicago that had these big banners that were saying like cosplay is not consent, like ask before you take photos
Wow.
and like all of that. I was like, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things like if somebody were to feel uncomfortable and like that person was confronted by security, like the person who was making the other
Yeah.
feel uncomfortable, they could clearly point out to that sign, be like, "Are you doing all of these things?" No. All right,
See you
you're
later.
gone.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Have you would you like is there a convention that you haven't been to that you want to? I mean, everyone wants to
Oh,
go to San Diego and
yeah.
that big
Um,
one, but
I would
something
love to
more
go to
realistic maybe?
yeah. Something more realistic, I guess. Ooh,
To be a vendor at,
any
like, because to be a vendor at San Diego is one of the hardest things to do.
oh yeah.
It's
So like to
so
be a
hard.
vendor at, I don't really know. I guess maybe something smaller, like to
Fan
be,
Expo is a good by the way, Fan
yeah.
Expo is it's a big con, like, for
Mhm.
Boston. It's the biggest convention, like, right, it's Boston's Comic-Con, that's Fan
Yeah.
Expo Boston, and it's a big convention. However, it's not San Diego Comic-Con, like, but, the next Marvel movies don't get released, or
Yeah.
shown there, right? So, but it's a really fun time, and I think you could do well there.
Yeah. I feel like I would love to either go there or Kineticon. That's another place that I've heard wonderful things about and I would love to go for like a big con just to attend, like not necessarily like have a table or anything like that. I would love to go to one of the ones down in Florida or go to D23 because I'm a big
Yeah,
Disney
oh my
nerd.
god, yeah, clearly, right? She
Yeah.
she refuses to do any DC cosplay.
No, it's just
No,
I haven't gotten there yet.
no, just joking. But
No, I know,
I
I know.
think there's also a few conventions that I just heard about, like Terrificon,
Mhm.
out of Foxborough, like at the Mohegan Sun.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I had heard the name, but I hadn't heard like where it was.
they emailed me about going after Springfield, and I was like, "When is
Oh,
it?" And they were
fun.
like, "Oh, it's this week." I was like, "No,
Oh, never mind.
no, I'm not going."
So
Uh,
crazy.
Yeah, but that one, I mean, I can imagine that that's pretty big. Mohegan Sun's a huge place, so
Yeah.
um, it's. I really say though, the convention atmosphere really, really, really did get me very involved. Like, I want to do more, and I'm looking for other ways to do it. So if you ever have any, conventions that are local or anything, definitely let me know because I would love to,
Absolutely.
do more collaborations with people. Like, at Springfield, I got to talk to Keith Williams, and
Yeah.
for Keith, like, he's not huge in the comic book industry, but he's essential to it. He's been
Mhm.
essential to runs that I've really loved. Because what he does is there's a penciler and then an inker, right? So
Yeah.
the penciler starts it, and then he comes in and does all the dark lines and shadowing, which is very, very crucial to art. So when he was talking about it, and I got to hear it, like, I looked at him and I was just like, "This is amazing." Like, the situation
Yeah.
I'm in right now is just amazing. I could do this all day, every day, and
Mhm.
we made a little money doing it too.
Yeah.
I did not complain about that part of it. Did you? Now, do you do something like that? I was gonna ask. Like,
Uh,
I didn't notice. I couldn't tell on your table. Like, when you go to conventions, is it more for you to just be there, or are you there as a business as well?
so I'm mostly just there to be there.
Okay.
That was actually Springfield Comic Con was my first official like guest spot, and so that was super cool to experience that and feel good. But yeah, most of the time I'm just there to be there. Um, it was really fun to kind of like cross promote like uh my pages and all that. I'm also part of a D&D podcast. So I was able to make like a QR code so people could
Yeah,
scan that and link with that. So that was super cool. I loved being able to do that and kind of getting a little more traction to that other thing that I do. So it was super special.
yeah. That by the way, I didn't even know. Like, some lady, actually, the mother of the sailor girl. She's
Oh,
she's the one who said, "Hey," because I was trying to figure out a way because I didn't have time to make business cards or anything like that. plus I didn't know that people wanted those things, right?
Yeah.
Because it's a business card, it's outdated. And I'm a
Mhm.
podcast, I don't have business cards.
Yeah.
So I was like, how can I get these people to the channel? And this
Mhm.
woman was like, QR code. And
Yes.
I was like, how can I make this work? And I was like, oh, I have my iPad. So I put the
Mhm.
iPad on the front of the table with the QR code, and then they would walk by, just take their camera and be immediate subscribe. And
Yeah.
we gained like 150 subscribers that day, plus a couple new members. It was just an overall great experience to to interact locally with fans that are close to me, right? Instead of
Mhm.
people, a lot of our like Adam, Sam, I know Billy's closer, but Nick, a lot of our people that watch are West Coast, and it's like we can never
Yeah.
really you can't really connect with those people, right? But we made a
Mhm.
lot of new faces and new listeners and watchers that are going to be
Yeah.
local that we can do things for. So that's
And
yeah.
yeah, and the QR codes are great because you can. So we also use Linktree. So the
Yes.
Linktree basically has like the YouTube, the Apple Podcast link, the like the Spotify link. So I was able to put the QR code link to our Linktree, and then people could click from
Oh,
there.
that
Like,
was such a better idea.
and so that was like the coolest thing of having people be able to do that, get directly to the content, and also pick out what they were doing with it. Like, oh, well, I only listen on Spotify, so I'm gonna click here. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna watch on YouTube, click here. So
That's
it was
such
a
a
good, convenient place to put everything, which was great.
now well, hey, I learned something today. I did, because that was the one thing, is like I had to decide between Spotify or YouTube.
Yeah.
But I guess I didn't have to do that. But
Mhm.
I chose YouTube because we already get 1,000 plus downloads on Spotify and all the
Yeah.
podcast platforms, right? Per
Mhm.
episode. So we're trying to work on the YouTube part of it now, right? So
Yeah.
I chose YouTube, but the Linktree thing, that's such a good idea. Such a good
Yeah.
idea.
Linktree's great too, especially like if you guys have like a merch shop or anything as well, like you can send them straight there, which is awesome.
Which is now integrated with our YouTube. So
Yeah.
below this video, you can check out some of the merchandise that we offer. Plugged.
Yeah.
To wrap up a little bit, is there a dream cosplay for you, or a dream character, that I guess I've already asked that kind of actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
No, because so
Yeah.
the dream character was shit. Did I did I, did I ask you
I
that?
I will say I think I don't know. I think it was like the next Marvel one I wanted to do, but
Yeah.
I guess probably like one that's still on the top
We
of
should
my
do
list.
more horror.
Yeah. I would love to. I did a Nell from Hill House. That one's pretty special, but I guess so I have categories when it comes to like cosplays, like ones that are going to be like a big build and ones that are like slightly more attainable. So I guess one of my like more attainable ones
Uh,
is Wonder Woman.
okay.
That one's really
That's what
special to me for a lot of reasons. Um, and I guess my next like slightly much harder, less attainable one because it involves like prosthetics and all that. I'd love to do the bent neck lady from Hill
Oh
House.
my god. That would be
I
so
want to
intense.
I want to figure out that prosthetic. I want to figure out like how to make it, how to wear it so like I'm comfortable all day. Because that's it. Once again, I say comfort's the biggest thing, and I don't want to like if the broken part has to be like right here, I don't want to like have to have my head turned all
Yeah,
day and then
that'd
just
be
get a crick.
terrible. Yeah, you
Yeah,
should talk to some prosthetic people and
yeah,
figure out how they can do that.
absolutely. And that's one of I guess that's like the biggest like dream cosplay that I would want to do is something enormous like that that has a lot of makeup, that has a lot of like moving parts to it. So
I figured out, by the way, the question that I actually did want to ask.
yeah.
I phrased it really wrong there, but what does cosplaying mean to you, and where's it going to go?
Oh geez.
Like, do you want to
So
build on this and make it a career? I mean, you said you have a small business as well. Like, what is
yeah.
cosplaying for you, and where do you see it going? Because I mean, you're very much in, I guess, your infancy of cosplaying. Still,
Yeah.
right?
I'm still very small.
Our our
Um,
ch- our channel's only been around for 2 years, right? Our show's only been
yeah.
around for 2 years. I still consider us an infant,
Mhm.
right? So
It's it's definitely something that I'm still like it is and will always be like a hobby to me. It's something fun that I can turn to wind down. Like it's something I can turn to when I'm in a stressful situation. Um, like one of my major cosplay memories is when I was building that Bandit Snow White vest. My mom was in surgery for breast cancer,
that's what my mom.
and
That's what my mom passed away for.
yeah, and and that's another reason why I want to do Wonder Woman so bad, because through the entire process, I would tell her like, "You are my Wonder Woman," and that's why I want to
That
do that one so bad.
that is
And
very eerie. You know
yeah,
why?
mm.
So the conversation that I had
Oh jeez,
with Liz Wonder, the reason that she donated that amount of money that I told you earlier was
mm-hmm.
this inside joke that I had with my mother when
Oh
she was going through her treatment about her being Wonder Woman. Very
no,
eerie to hear someone else say
all
that.
all the fight. I will say, like all cancer fighters, they are superheroes, and that's a very like it's a very special thing to anybody who has gone through that, or family members who have gone through that. Like they are the superheroes of the real world.
Yeah.
And it's but she knew
Doctors,
that, yeah, that too.
doctors, first
Yeah.
aid, right? Um all these people that put their lives on the line to protect us. Like those are
Mm.
real. Like what they say is all heroes don't wear capes, right?
Yeah,
Most of them
absolutely.
don't. But
Hmm.
yeah, that's very very nice to hear that someone else.
Yeah.
I mean, my mom was a little bit different because I'd call her Wonder Woman and she'd be like, "Fucking nerd," right? Like that's just who she was. And we had
Yeah.
like an inside joke about it. I'd be like, "All right, Wonder
Hmm.
Woman," and she would tell me what it was an inside thing between her and I, and
Yeah.
that's why it was really weird to hear you say that. But
Yeah.
so your mother did she beat it?
Oh, yep. She is totally fine. They caught it early enough, so she is totally fine. She is 3 or 4 years clean in remission now, so that's awesome.
That's
But
great.
during her surgery, she told me, she's like, "Bring your project, bring your thing," so that even though when she was in the operating room, I could sit there and sew,
Right.
and I could keep my mind off of that because I had to make sure I wasn't stabbing myself with a needle. I had to focus and make sure that, because at the time there was like a ton of different like patches, and I had to make sure everything looked right.
Right.
And so she knew that I would focus on that and not worry about her. And so that's what cosplay really means to me, is having that escape and having that fun thing that I can go do with my friends, and like in a way be part of the movies, because
Right.
I always loved going to movie theaters growing up.
Yeah.
And I am an actor. I've done like little mini things, but I don't think I'll ever be lucky enough to be part of like a big screen like thing. Maybe someday, who knows? I
I
don't know
wouldn't
what the
say
world
that.
has. Yeah, I don't know what the world has in store for me, but like,
I had
oh, go ahead.
I had on Mark Pellegrino for Springfield. I did a segment with him, and
Hmm.
afterwards I was like, "Hey man, can I come to the set of American Rust?" And he was like, "Yeah, when do you want to come?" And I was like, Uh, uh, I was like, I didn't think you were gonna say yes, so I
Yeah,
don't know. But I also talked to a bunch of like directors, and anytime I have one of them on, I'm like, can I come to your set?
yeah.
And every one of them
Mhm.
has said, unfortunately not now, or whatever. And then Mark was like, yeah, and I was like,
Yeah,
oh, so like I'm gonna try to like be an extra in it, and just like be able to do those things. So I would never say never, like
yeah.
when it comes to that kind of stuff. Um,
Hmm.
because you never know when a door's gonna open, right?
Absolutely, and that's
Especially at a
and
convention.
yeah, and
So
those are the little things that I can take for right now. Like another memory from my first ever time in the Black Widow suit, a really good friend of mine, she and I were going into New York Comic Con, and we were about to miss our train. And so we hopped out of the Uber and ran. So I was running down this sidewalk in full Black Widow costume, and we got on the train. I was like, why was that so cool?
It felt like there was stakes here.
It
There was
did.
something at stake. You needed to
Yes.
get on that train.
And that's one of my favorite like cosplay memories is me just barreling down this sidewalk like dressed as a superhero. I'm like, this is great. This is why I do this. For like
you
little
have-
moments like that.
Do you have any advice for someone who maybe wants to cosplay but is a little nervous about it, or because some people really like it's really hard to
I
say
guess
it. There are people
I
who
guess
don't like themselves.
mhm.
Like they don't like how they look, they don't like what whatever. And they have a hard time maybe displaying,
Yeah.
or being in costume.
Mhm.
I know because I'm one of them.
Yeah. And I will say this, cosplay is for everyone and we all start somewhere. Like it doesn't matter what you look like or if you look like the character or if you don't. Like if you feel a connection to that character, then do it. And we, as I said, we all start somewhere. You can go buy a costume from Party City and that's still cosplay. You can make it yourself and that's still cosplay. Like it's not a competition. We are all at different levels and you're going to learn and grow. And if you want to do the full foam body armor builds, more power to you. That's awesome. If you don't feel like you're ready for that, that's okay too. Yeah. And that's my biggest thing is it's for everyone and everyone at all abilities. It's meant to be fun. Like the word play is literally in the name.
Literally right there.
It's right there. Like it's definitely just something super fun. It's meant to be fun. It's not meant to be stressful, even though we all kind of stress ourselves out getting ready. Con crunch is a thing and it's very awful.
Yeah. I saw it in action with because I didn't do any. I literally wore a cape. That was it. Because I had so much other stuff. Like I had to bring 7 bags worth of equipment with me. I had no time to dress up. But the other 2 that I was with, they did. And I could see them getting ready and like getting mad at each other. I was like, oh my God. I was like, can you drop me off? Like I'll get ready.
Con crunch is scary.
It's super weird. Like I was like a little bit shaking about it because I was like, I'm not gonna be on time. I'm not gonna be on time. And it was really stressful. Really stressful. But thank you for and I literally get this one all the time. Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man specifically. So if I were to ever do a cosplay, it'd probably be that. Just because
I will say for that, and I have to do this with Black Widow. If you ever do it, you got to stretch out before any con, because the amount of times when I'm in the Black Widow suit and they ask you to do the pose, and so you drop into it, and then you do it so many times. If you haven't stretched before, you will be sore for days. I've learned that the hard way. So if you ever do it, you got to stretch.
Things we don't think about, right? Getting ready for conventions by stretching and maybe meditating, because it can be a stressful environment, right?
And also just in general, making sure that like nothing rips in the costume.
Oh my God.
That was the hard thing. Like the amount of times I have heard Black Widows say like, don't buy this suit. I dropped into the pose once and it ripped. Like the entire like thigh ripped out or like something like that. And I'm like, okay, noted.
And for a woman, I mean, I know not the guys probably wouldn't complain about it, but and for women that's game over right there. You're you're out of there. God, I didn't even think about how terrible that would be.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yikes. But I mean, I ask someone brought it up earlier. I ask everybody. And we're going to take a hard right turn right here.
No, I know it's coming.
Are we alone in the universe?
Absolutely not. There is something out there. I fully believe that there is like stuff. I believe in cryptids. Actually, let me classify that. Certain cryptids I believe in. There are some that I'm like kind of iffy on, but I do think there's something out there. I have no shame in saying that.
Have you ever seen anything in the sky that you couldn't recognize? That's usually where it starts for people. So that's where it started for me. right?
Mhm.
If I saw something through a telescope that I could not explain, right?
Oh, wow.
By any means of natural, but I also grew up next to an Air Force base, right?
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of people will, that's their debunk right there. And maybe,
Mhm.
that's totally plausible. I was
Yeah.
very young and, I couldn't explain it. But that's for me is where, yeah, I'm a UFO obsessed lately. So what?
Yeah. It's
Um,
one of those it's one of those things, like, I haven't had experience with that, but I have had paranormal experiences.
ooh,
So
talk
it's
to me about it.
yeah, so it's one of those things, like, to me in my brain, I'm like, you can't have one without the other. Like, if there's something otherworldly in that nature, there's got to be something up above. But so my college where I went to school had a ghost. Unfortunately, a woman had been um, killed on campus a long, long time ago, and she had been leaving a theater performance. So so she had been leaving a theater performance to go back to like the housing, and unfortunately she
Didn't make
was killed. She didn't make it back, but she still stays in a lot of the theaters. And I was a theater major. There was one
that's
seat in the
crazy.
front row that would always just be down. It
Oh
was
my
like the
god.
weighted seats from movie
Right.
theaters.
So those clap back right up,
Mhm.
and it would just be
And
down.
there were many times where we would walk into that theater and it would just be down. And
Nothing
it,
wrong with the suspension on it.
nope, once you put it back up, like if you put it back up and like went to do it, it like set it down to see if it was broken, no, it
It
put
would
back up.
pop. Oh my god.
Yep. There were times where lights would
Awesome.
turn on in that theater, and the worst one was so that theater had like an orchestra pit, and I was in charge of running like a little trap door, so I did like technical stuff as well as acting. And there was a scene where like a big fight scene was happening above me, and it was supposed to be like really eerie and creepy. And I was sitting down there, and there was a chair next to me that people would stand on to like stand in the trap door. It was actually a production of Holes. I don't know if you've ever read that book or seen that movie.
Yeah, of course. I'm
So
30.
I was in charge of the hole. Like I had to open up the trap door so they could like go down and dig in it and all of that. But so I'm sitting in this chair, and of course it's pitch black in the orchestra pit. They're doing a fight scene up there, so people are yelling. It's kind of scary. And I look over to my right, and there is old timey skirts in that chair next to me. And I
Yeah.
immediately shut my eyes. I'm like, never again.
Yeah, that's
And
it.
I know like her name was Tilly. I know like Tilly wouldn't ever like hurt anybody. She never had. It was just
Sh-
I didn't want her sitting there.
But
And I remember asking our stage manager, I was like, "Can I have a light?" And I told her why, and she's like, "You're getting a light. You're getting a light down there."
that's amazing. That's a great
So,
well, and that's what a lot of people forget is like and Nick actually brought it up. What if we do what if like we mistake ghosts for interdimensional like
yeah.
or maybe ghosts are real and I mean so for Tilly it would be she was a theater person so
Hmm.
her spirit is attached to the theater, right, and
Yeah.
that's what's keeping her in the
Hmm.
medium, right, so
Yeah.
that's there's been a lot of lore about that kind of stuff, right. I honestly think my mother's here, right.
Yeah.
I there's been multiple times where I have temperature like I have thermometers around the house for different reasons. And the temperature dropped in my bathroom like 7 degrees at one point when I was like washing my hands. I
Yeah. No,
swear,
that's not normal.
yeah, and I swear someone was behind me. And when I looked, I felt that comfort of being around my mom.
Yeah.
And it took me a while to realize it. But then Marlena, who Marlena also on a different day came down and was like, I think your mom's here. And I was like, what do you mean? How so? And she was like, I just got this really weird feeling that she was sitting with me. And I was
Hmm.
like, huh. And then I talked to her about my experience because I took a lot of my mom's things to my house.
Yeah.
So something I have here, I think, is keeping her here. And honestly, I'm not afraid to say it. We have
Yeah.
tried to talk to her and let her know that we're okay and that she can go. So yes, maybe I'm agnostic to all these ideas, right? So I I keep it neutral until I know 100%, right?
Exactly.
But I don't shoot anything down, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't make, like, if people believe in God, great. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy, right? That if that
Yeah.
if that brings you peace or whatever, and that's awesome. Like,
Yeah.
and that's where I think people like, I think people mislabel all of this stuff as like crackpot, theories, and where's the proof? Where's the proof? They
Yeah.
always like to say that, and it's like you have to experience it,
Yeah.
and then
Once you experience it, like you're
it's
just like,
yeah,
okay.
it's think about all the, like. So let's talk. I know I'm getting off off target here, but and you have to go. But think about all the military personnel who are super skeptics, right? And then get into it by having experience, and then they dedicate the rest of their life to it,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Then we talk about people like Stephen Greer, who I think is a grifter, but may have some truth to what he's talking about. But then Lou Elizondo, hardcore anti-terrorism, guy, gets put in charge of ATIP, advanced aero, whatever threat something program.
Yeah.
It was basically them monitoring craft that were interfering with our military, and he was a super skeptic. He was like, this is bullshit. And then he starts interviewing people, and he's like, there's something to this.
Yeah.
And he resigned from his job in the government to join a private sector so that he could talk more openly about it.
Oh, wow.
He said, he was like, when I was in ATIP, and because he was the leader of the program, right? And he said,
Mm-hmm.
in order to talk to anybody about what I was doing, we had to go into like a safe, a vault, shut the vault, and really whisper to each other. Basically, that's
Oh,
how
geez.
the government looks at this subject. So
Mm-hmm.
if we don't normalize talking about it, or at least having the open conversation, then what if one day they do drop on the White House lawn and we're
Yeah.
forced into disclosure?
Mm-hmm.
Mass panic.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Talking about it is really fun to me, and the
Yeah.
idea of it is really like special, because if that's true,
What else?
what else is out there, and
Yeah.
that brings me joy. So, thank you so much for coming. I really
Thank you for having me. This
I had a
is
good conversation. So
this is one of the first times I've gotten to do like a podcast or something like this. So thank you so much. This is awesome.
yeah, it can be. It's fun. I'm more of an in-person person. Oh God, that
Yeah.
didn't come out right. I'm more of
I
a
know what you mean.
bring them in the studio kind of person, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, we don't live in a world that's always possible these days.
Yeah.
And
But thank
we're
God
just
for the
getting
internet.
literally, with the pandemic. Imagine if the pandemic happened in the 80s. There would have
Yep.
been so many suicides just because, like, people would literally not know what to do with themselves. Like, it would have been
Mm.
terrible. I've seen like people theorizing, like, if it happened in a different generation, how would they handle it? And
Mhm. It
without the
wouldn't have been good.
internet, without the internet, it would not have been good.
Yeah.
Because you would have been, locked in your house for
Yeah.
whatever.
Real sad.
We're just getting back to conventions.
I know.
It's so, where can people find you? Where can people follow you and all that? I have your Instagram here, so it's Regal Rein Cosplay.
Mhm.
You can follow that one. And then are you on TikTok and all the other ones?
Yep. So I'm on TikTok. It's Regal Rein _Alley. It should be in the link tree that is in my Instagram bio. You can find everything there. I had a YouTube channel for a while, but I don't really use it anymore. But you can watch like old convention vlogs there. I have a Twitter, but once again, don't use it too often. That is at Regal Rein Cosp. I am getting better, I promise.
Twitter will help you.
Yes, I know. I'm trying to get much better using Twitter, and I don't feel like I'm funny, so I feel like I don't have anything to say on Twitter.
Listen, I don't think I've ever been funny. and Twitter generates, so like if I go to analytics, I'm an analytic guy. Twitter drives most of our YouTube clicks, right?
Oh,
so
nice.
It's a immeasurably great tool. It's just a very toxic environment at sometimes, so you just gotta kind of wade through it, right?
Absolutely.
Take what you need and get out of there. But
Take what you need and run.
literally, thank you so much for coming on. I had such a great time. You're always welcome here at the Pop Culture Corner, Allie, and I hope to see you soon at some convention, and hopefully stay in
Absolutely.
touch. Okay.
Thank you so much. You have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. And for
All
everyone
right.
else, you can still talk. I'm just gonna
Yeah, sure.
do the banter. Make sure smash that like button. So share the show with your friends, family, your enemy, your grandmother, your sister, your brother, cousin, third removed. I don't care. Share with everybody. Subscribe if you haven't already, and join our membership for exclusive access to interviews and other cool stuff. You can also check out our new TikTok. We are actually doing different style videos, and it's really fun. All the descriptions for me and Allie are going to be in the description below, so feel free to browse. And thank you everyone for showing up. I always have such a good time. We'll see you a little bit later.